The war in Ukraine softened a little on New Year's Eve and due to the harsh winter weather conditions. In the southern front lines of the Ukraine-Russia war, which we enter the critical period, the conflicts between both sides have decreased considerably. However, the Eastern Front is still the scene of fierce fighting and the center of the conflict is the city of Bakhmut in Donetsk Oblast. Without wasting any time, let's move on the details of the hot news in Bakhmut. Currently, good news is constantly coming from the city in favor of Ukraine. Russian troops began to slowly withdraw from their trenches in Bakhmut. Even if the city is almost going to hell right now, the reduction in conflict is still a positive detail. The Ukrainian armed forces likewise tended to reduce their counterattacks in Bakhmut. Instead of carrying out new attacks, the Kiev soldiers are trying to heal the wounds in this city. We also hear that the sounds of missile and gunfire have decreased in the southern regions of Ukraine this week. Compared to last week, Russian troops did not show any significant activity in Kherson, where they retreated. The last striking operation of the Ukrainian armed forces took place in this region. The Kiev army had blown up one of Russia's favorite defense systems, the S-300 anti-aircraft gun, in Kherson a few days ago. In addition, the Ukrainian armed forces blew up the ammunition depots and command centers in the Moscow army in these attacks. Additionally, the blow-up of Zaporizhzhia Kadyrov's base by Ukrainian artillery this week has caused great unease among Russian troops. But at the moment, the fighting seems to have subsided a little, both in and around Crimea and in the most of the southern regions of Ukraine. Although conflicts on the battlefield have waned, Russia maintains its threatening diplomatic stance towards Ukraine. Russian President Putin has threatened to destroy Patriot missile defense systems if the US fulfills its commitment to supply Ukraine. In an interview broadcast on the Kremlin-controlled Russia 1 TV channel on Christmas Day, Putin implicitly drew attention to Russia's preparations in this regard after hurling these threats. In an interview, Putin stated he received assurances that Ukraine does not yet have such complexes. Although the Russian leader has implicitly threatened the United States not to send Patriot defense system to the Kiev army, Putin and the Kremlin administration are now openly entering a phase of softening in their policies in the Ukraine war. In a statement on the possibility of negotiation between Russia and Ukraine, Putin said, "We are ready to negotiate with the parties on acceptable issues." However, Putin's negotiation conditions are unacceptable for the Ukrainian people and world democracies. The Russian administration wants to sit at the table arguing that the lands it annexed under the terms of negotiation belong to Russia, and it does not give up on Crimea. Such a negotiation would be completely meaningless under these circumstances, and a temporary truce in the negotiation process would buy Putin time to replenish ammunition to carry out his evil plans. Here, Putin's sudden turnaround and the Kremlin's warm attitude towards the negotiations presented us with a very important detail we had overlooked. This is the first time that the conflicts on the front line have decreased and the Moscow administration has made such statements about the peace talks for the first time. Yes, a stunning intelligence report that came out yesterday revealed that the reason for all this. British intelligence reported that the Russians currently do not have the resources to carry out a large-scale operation. Considering that the Moscow army could not accelerate their attacks on this process, it increases the accuracy of the reports of the British intelligence. In addition, the sum of Russia's progress in the last 2 months is much less than in October. That's why, according to British defense officials, Russia's war effort in Ukraine is hampered by ammunition shortages, which limits the amount of attacks Moscow forces can carry out. In this report, the British Ministry of Defense reported that Russia is trying to cope with the shortage of soldiers by strengthening its army with tens of thousands of reservists. Defense officials said that despite this increase in Moscow army personnel, ammunition shortages likely remain the key factor limiting Russian offensive operations. Also, it should not be forgotten here, the Russian army sent thousands of rookie soldiers to Ukraine, and 90% of these soldiers can't even find winter clothes or tents to sleep in. Adding to the situation the shortage of old weapons and ammunition, Russian soldiers began to desert and surrender to the Ukrainian army much more than before. The British assessment also underlined that the limited availability of cruise missiles means Russia is likely limiting its long-range missile strikes against Ukrainian infrastructure once a week. It was also noted in the reports of the British Ministry of Defense that it is unlikely that Russia will increase its stockpile of artillery enough to allow large-scale offensive operations. British officials also touched upon the striking details of how Russian military operations were conducted. British officials who claimed that even maintaining defensive operations along the front line required a significant daily amount of shells and rockets explained that the Russians currently do not meet these conditions and do not have the strength to engage in long conflicts. In fact, all these assessments and Russia's attitude shed light on the current state of the war very clearly. In line with the statements of the British Ministry of Defense, Russian President Vladimir Putin is not in a position to achieve the most important goals in his war in Ukraine at the moment. However, since the personal survival of the Russian leader is in danger, he does not want to step back from the conflict. When Putin launched his invasion of the Eastern European country on February 24, after months of military build-up on the Ukrainian border, many war experts expected a swift victory for the Russian military. However, after more than 300 days and an estimated 103,000 Russian casualties, Moscow has lost its image of superior military power. Ukraine, on the other hand, currently wants to gain the upper hand in the war thanks to the support of the USA and Western Europe, according to Russia's unfavorable situation. In his Christmas message on this subject, Ukrainian leader Zelensky said that unfortunately all the holidays this year have a bitter taste in the mouth. We will not wait for a miracle. Our duty towards this belief and word of the Ukrainian leader is to give the necessary support to the innocent people where to find peace and freedom and to give them all necessary to create miracles. Also expressing that some of the chairs at the table were empty at the Christmas dinner, the Ukrainian leader said that we feel the traditional Christmas spirit differently. Dinner on our tables is not tasty and hot. There are empty chairs around. Our houses and streets are not illuminated. Christmas bells don't ring loud and inspiring. We hear air raid sirens or worse, gunfire and explosions. All of these together can pose a greater threat. It's a disappointment. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that due to the ongoing war against Russia, some citizens had to leave Ukraine and some Kyiv soldiers were captured. But Zelensky also promised that after the new year, the work will continue at full speed to save his country from the Russian occupation army. When we enter a very critical period in the war, if the US and Western European aid to the Ukrainian armed forces reach the Kyiv soldiers in time, there is no obstacle to the fulfillment of Zelensky's promise. But just as Russia is suffering from ammunition shortages, the Ukrainian army also needs support in this regard. For this reason, the aid expected to be sent to Kyiv is of vital importance for the course of the war to change in favor of Ukraine. Currently, the USA, the European Union, and many European countries are announcing new aid packages for the year 2023 to Kyiv army. During 2022, the USA was the country that gave the most aid to Ukraine. The UK and Germany followed the USA. Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and the Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Turkey, and Italy are among the countries that gave great support to Ukraine in this process. Thank you for watching us.